On time. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How's everybody feeling today? In a good mood? You better be, because it's Freedom Family Friday. We've got the smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife of mine, Stephanie Peterson. Give it up.
I'm losing all of my props. I have all these toys and things.
You got lots of fun things to play with today.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you got?
My fidget toys.
Oh, your fidget toys. Reginald the Rooster.
Got a chicken. I've got our Founding Flavors coffee. And Founding Fathers themes.
And you got me to play with too.
Oh. That's for later.
That's for later. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. Stephanie Peterson joining us in the house for Freedom Family Friday.
Work before play.
We've got lots of great fun today for you and some awesome guests. Justin Peterson, another Peterson family member.
Yeah, he's actually a family member. I know every day, like when Camelia's on, you're always like, she is not related to me. Now you can be like, Justin is related to me.
Justin is my brother. He is Peterson, S-E-N. He'll be joining us here today on the show at 8 a.m. Central Time. We've got a couple of topics that we're going to talk to him about. He's going to kind of react to the other interview that we have set up today, which is going to happen at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. This is a guy by the name of Chris Muntz, and he is a music educator. I believe that he is...
in Lee Summit, Missouri.
Yes.
A choir teacher. Or
Correct.
so I think.
Yes, he calls himself a music educator, and he is also the host of the Chorosophy podcast. Yeah. And he was reacting to a TikTok that went viral where white kids were sort of feeling embarrassed because they had been singing black songs in their choir class. And, you know, that this idea of cultural appropriation perhaps extends to the choir. Now, when I was in choir in high school, we sang Negro spirituals.
Yeah.
And that's what you called them.
Oh, yeah. I was in choir ever since I was in third grade.
And you
sang
through
high school.
And you sang like Elijah Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Elijah Rock, shout to shout. Elijah Rock, coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout. Elijah Rock, coming up, Lord Jesus. And it was like...
and then I remember, shout-de-do,
keep out the devil. Shout-de-do, keep the devil at the light. Shout-de-do, keep out the devil. Hallelujah, keep a glorious song. I don't know.
Now, the problem for me as a Jewish kid, I remember I was going to have a solo because we were like singing at a church for Christmas. And I was going to be singing about Jesus in my solo. And I remember my mom didn't want me to do that. And so
really?
I had to play an instrument instead.
Oh.
I couldn't sing about Jesus.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so that, you know what, that's funny because it reminds me of a story when my dad was a kid. They taught dancing in gym class. And so they weren't allowed to, because my dad was Baptist, he was not allowed to dance.
Oh, that's right.
So my dad...
That is so hard to picture your dad not dancing. Like, he loves the Winter Dance Festival in Iowa.
He does. He's got this. He's got the dance move like this right here.
Oh, he's a smooth fox.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Dad is a smooth fox for sure. Yes, he's a silver fox these days. But no, he was not. He tells the story about him and his sister Carmen, my aunt Carmen, and when they were kids, they felt so embarrassed because in the gym, while all the other kids were dancing, and I think I asked him what kind of dancing it was. It might have been square dancing. Right.
Aww.
Which is so funny because you could think like, can you imagine being offended by square dancing? You know?
I know. I was wondering, like, is it because it's with like partners and that could get a little promiscuous, you know, in terms of making boys and girls like each other?
I was trying to teach you a square dance recently.
Yes. I am not very good at formal dancing, you know, like choreographed stuff. I'm good at just like free dancing by myself.
See, we don't have to worry about anybody appropriating square dancing or anything like that because nobody's going to do that. Well, anyway.
I don't know. People may be offended by square dancing. I'm sure there's a lot of meaning behind square dancing.
I got good at it actually because we did it in middle school and high school and at Ray Peck when I went to Ray More Peculiar, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, you know, you have an excuse to put your hands on girls.
No, I don't remember us learning dancing. I remember learning ballet when I went to private school. I was in like second grade.
Didn't you do tap dancing as well, Stephanie?
For maybe like a very short time. Yes, I did wear a Minnie Mouse costume to my recital. I do remember that. I was probably like 4 years old.
Oh, and since you were, I mean, you really enjoy tap dancing.
I like the sound of the clickety clack.
Okay.
I must be autistic. There's something about clickety clack. Like I need certain keyboards when I'm typing. You hear me when I'm typing. I love the clickety clickety, but it has to be a certain type of noise.
You got some problems, but it's not
It's a sensory
autism.
issue.
Anyway, so then you probably enjoyed the White House tap dancing video that they. I liked our friend Hannah Cox's take on it. Yeah, you know what she called it? She says that it was happy holidays to all Americans who prefer to celebrate Christmas like they're on an acid trip at a pride parade.
I mean, drugs, yes. Maybe there were drugs involved. I would say most successful people in this world use drugs.
There are a lot of drugs involved, let's be honest.
Especially artists.
Yeah, for sure.
They do.
Anyways, so some people are saying it looked like the Hunger Games.
No.
I didn't get that impression.
No, it wasn't like deep and dark and like I didn't feel like I was about to die.
Okay, but hold on now. This one
Nobody was about to get killed behind the Christmas tree.
A lot of the pictures, a lot of the coverage has been freeze framing on this frame right here. Can you see what I'm looking at right now? Take a look.
Is it okay if I peek over?
You can peek over. The camera's on me anyway. But here it is. Look at this. Look at this now.
Oh my goodness.
Now see this.
What is she about to accept in her mouth?
That's Stephanie.
It's a very wide.
Is that the transgender one? Because there's always got to be at least one.
Her head looks shaved.
It does. It does, but apparently it's not shaved.
I think it's just maybe up. Does she have like an up hairdo?
Yeah, she does. But she's just like, it's a little freaky looking there.
Yeah, her mouth was open just a little too big. Someone needed to tell her to close her mouth a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, it just
it was just a very accentuated over exaggerated facial.
It was
facial formation.
It was a little odd, yes. But Hanukkah ended last night, and
it did. We lit the candles every single day. There was one day we didn't light the candles, but we said the prayers with my mother on the phone.
We did. Barakatah Adonai Eloheinu
Melech Halam Asher Kishanu Mitzvotav Lahatlik Ner Shel Hanukkah. We still have to use our printout paper.
Yeah, for sure. We got to say thank you to Joni Rankin for dropping $20 in the tip jar. What's up, Joni?
Why'd she do that?
Because we were dancing. She says, no ran here. Big thank you to the Petersons for starting out my day right. Love you guys.
She is a fellow artist. She appreciates dance and singing, and she knows how it is.
But she's not. She's a liberty lover. She's not like she's a real liberal in the like good sense, not the bad sense.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? She's like she's not going to force anybody to go and watch Les Miserables or for it to be publicly funded.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, are we commenting on the video now, or are we going to?
Go ahead.
I mean, if it were boring, if it were like the Nutcracker, people would be like, "Oh my god, that's so boring." Like, we need our attention grabbers. Okay, this was an attention grabber. There was a lot to look at. It's good for kids. It's good for adults. It's not like inappropriate. Nobody's doing anything weird. They're just dancing and opening their mouths.
Okay, but hold on. Let's compare it to Christmas. Let's be visited by a ghost of Christmas past who might actually also be the ghost of Christmas future, which is Melania Trump.
Yeah, so she had a video too.
Here's their video. This is the ghost of Christmas past and possibly Christmas future. Unfortunately,
I need to peek my eyes over.
Joe Biden is the ghost of Christmas present. Here, I'll put the camera on me so you can peek.
Okay,
there we go.
Thanks.
Republicans.
That was so boring.
You think so?
Oh my god. The lack of talent involved in that,
now wait a minute.
She did not decorate those trees, okay? They're like, here, sprinkle some fairy dust on the tree and make it look like you're doing all the decorations. Yeah.
Stephanie is not a very good Republican.
She hires help, okay?
Okay, hold on.
Those tap dancers were really tap dancing. They did not hire anyone to do it for them.
Good point, Stephanie.
They hired themselves.
Yeah,
or we're hired.
Not supposed to be saying this. We're supposed to just defend the Republicans here. Just shut up.
No. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing.
Okay, let's hear it.
Republicans don't know true art.
Oh boy, here it goes.
I don't know if they do.
Stephanie, she's probably true, but they're going to hate you anyway.
Most artists Liberals.
Listen, tell me, Steph.
It's called liberal arts for a reason, is it not? It's not called conservative
listen to your
arts.
husband for a moment. If you're going to tell people the truth, you have to make them laugh, or else they'll kill you. Okay?
Well, aren't I making you guys laugh? I think it's funny.
I think it is kind of funny too, actually. Well, wait a minute. Now, hold on. Here's another here's another comparison video side by side.
Okay.
Now this is a different year. Here you can see. Apparently there was some more color in this celebration. There's a lot more going on upstairs, not gonna lie. Okay, yeah.
It's just so mid. My goodness. I mean, Melania's a beautiful woman, but you know what? Maybe she should be singing or dancing or doing something else in the video rather than just walking.
Yes, obviously Melania was better because, quote, it's Trump. Yes, thank you, Livia.
Maybe she should be wearing her lingerie from her modeling days while walking through the Christmas trees. That would get some attention.
Right, Stephanie, my wife has gone off the plantation. Just FYI, she is a libertarian, so please forgive her for any...
If you became president, what would our video look like? You know,
dude, it would probably be
in our video.
Honestly, it would probably be
walking through the Christmas trees. That would
accident. It would probably be something in between both of those things. Like it would, we would have the. I know you were like, oh, the Nutcracker is boring, but I actually think like the Nutcracker Ballet is kind of beautiful and fun. So like I would have like traditional like Christmas displays, but we would have like some awesome dancers as well, right? So you'd get the best of both worlds. If you had a libertarian Republican like me as president, then you would get like the tap dancers, but it wouldn't be like they were on acid or on drugs.
Rockettes. We would get the Rockettes.
Yeah, you'd get the Rockettes
to do the can.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you got to have sexiness.
Yes, it's
mixed
true.
With sophistication.
It's true.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we'd have George and Kelvin in our video, and they'd be like running around.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, anyways, we're having a great morning this morning. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you come back here and join us. Melmax77777 joining us live this morning.
Nice name. To see you. Hello.
Welcome back.
7777.
7777777.
Are those 7 sevens?
7 sevens. I don't know.
Wow.
Everything's coming up sevens. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Quest says, don't go using our tax dollars for that, President Austin. Don't worry. I'd bring it out of my own pocket.
Are all of the videos that the presidents make made with tax dollars? Okay.
Probably. Yes. Yeah. The first ladies always get a little bit of a budget. So anyways, but
we would just ask for Rumble Rants and we'd just make our video from Rumble Rants.
There you go.
Yeah. So it'd be like a $20 video.
Solicit Rumble Rant donations is what it is.
There you go.
All right. So we've got a video that we're going to play today from our next guest. Guy's name is Chris Muntz. He's he's a choir teacher, a music educator, and he's the host of the Choralosophy podcast. And he was my brother, actually, Justin, shared this video with me because they were talking about whether or not whether or not white kids should be singing black songs in their choir classes. So when I saw this video, I was like, this would be a really good conversation to have on the show. We're going to have Chris Muntz at 7:30 this morning, so we're looking forward to talking to him about that. But let's watch this video a little bit and take a listen to this. So it says this is a white kid who posted it. He says, when I sang this solo to an African hymnal for my high school choir, the choir teacher was white. The entire choir was white. 99.9999% of the student body was white. Everyone in the audience was white. Here he is.
Okay, so I get that this creator is probably trying to be funny, and that seems to be a lot of what happens on this channel, and I get that it's hilarious, but then he goes ahead and asks a serious question, which is why anyone would let this happen. So let's break that down. You're in a choir, 99.9% white. Your audience is probably also going to be 99.9% white. You're probably also in a community that is 99% white. There are lots of those in the United States. So let's break it down by math a little bit. The United States is about 60 to 70% white. Why would you say 60 to 70? Well, that 10% of a discrepancy depends on which expert you ask. Who counts as white? Because, of course, race is made up. It's a socially constructed thing. The categories are not agreed upon by everyone, and they change drastically over time. So right now, that 10% is in the Hispanic category, which was only made up in like the 1960s or so, and it attempts to lump a bunch of people together, mostly around coming from Spanish-speaking countries. So many people who are taking the label Hispanic appear to be white. And so some people would say, well, then they're white because they look white, right? So there's this whole argument. These are not real categories. But why does that matter? So you're in a community that is almost all white. You are going to have a white choir, which means that your soloist is going to need to be white. So then, now that we've kind of put the math aside, then we need to talk about the bigger picture, the elephant in the room. Why would you think that a choir can only sing music that their melanin content is similar to the people who originally sang that song? Where does that idea come from? Because one of the things, we can't have it both ways. We can't have it where we want to diversify education, which we do. We want our white students to not only be learning about things other white people did, right? Because that's the problem in the first place. So we would say, yes, we want to diversify education. Should that then not apply to the music classroom? Of course it should, right? So then you have to think about, does the choir in the middle of, let's see, the whitest state in the United States, West Virginia, 97% white. There are communities there that are almost 100% white. So there's a school in West Virginia, right? Should its students only do white people music? What would we accuse them of then? We would accuse them of being racist. So they do music that is then by not white people. And what do we accuse them of? Being racist. Okay, so obviously this is not a good platform to work on, right? We can't go from that as the ground level. So of course what matters the most is how they approach that music. Are they doing research on how that music should sound, how it should be performed? How do we pronounce the language? How do we understand how the music would have been used in the original culture? In other words, are we taking care of the musical origin culture when we perform the music? Because I don't think we want to say that just the skin color needs to match, because then you open up a whole another can of worms. Is black equal to African? No, because those are completely different cultures. In fact, Africa is the most diverse place on the planet in terms of culture, language, genetics even. There's more variance on the continent of Africa than the rest of the world combined. So we need to not have such reductive, oversimplified ways of looking at the world. Kids from every school, everywhere, who are lucky enough to have a choir should be singing music from as many places in the world as possible so that they can learn what the world is about and where people come from in their cultures. Do it respectfully, do it with research, and do it to the best of your ability, but do it.
Interesting. Oh, there's an
even
addendum,
more important part
there's
at
an
the
addendum
end.
to this.
Oh,
Yes.
and also, that song's not even African. I'm hoping that this creator knows that that's a Christopher Tin song, who's of Chinese-American descent, American citizen, born and raised, writing with a Swahili text, original music for a video game that deals with a lot of cultures from around the world. That's the Civilization video game series. I hope that he knows that.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't know that.
You know what just popped in my head? She was talking about this. Remember that woman who was like a car salesman or something, and she's talking about to Chinatown, and she's like,
Oh yes. It's the white
woman.
Oh my God, I've got to pull that video up. Yes. Yes, I want to be ninja.
To be ninja.
I want to chop and down, chop it down to. Here it is. I
She's
found
singing in front of an Asian person.
Yes, here it is. Here it is. Hold on. Here's the video. This is here. Watch.
Sneak peek. Chow is such a creep.
No, stop it.
Oh,
There's
it's
some like
probably a
remix
whole-
video.
Yeah,
I
a whole
want to be ninja.
montage.
Hold on. The original
It's
song.
hilarious, you guys.
Here it is.
Sneak
I mean,
peek.
Oh, quit it.
I'm not again.
They're just trying to give us like some like news thing that they do. Let's do. I
She
want
probably
to
has
be
it
ninja.
copyrighted and everything. She
I wonder
probably
if they
has
took
it like on an
down.
album because it's just so inappropriate.
Oh yeah, here it is. Hold on. This post. Oh, see, they're all. You know what it
Well,
was? They're all triggered by it.
That's
so
really
they
unfortunate.
Took it down.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering because I used to sing these kinds of songs in choir, and I'm remembering too when I would sing Latin
Sneak
songs,
peek.
songs in other languages. languages. Gosh, the sneak peek thing just keeps coming up.
Hold on, this looks like it's basically it here. I want to chop chow down.
Is anyone feeling offended by
Chinatown? Okay, so the funny thing, this story is that apparently this was like the opening of this lady's furniture store.
What is she talking about? How does this even have any relevance to her business?
It doesn't.
She's talking about like chopping prices or something.
This is what happens when you have like a rich husband who can afford to like spend money on his wife's like desire to be a business person. And so they do like a grand opening of like the mattress firm or whatever. So she's like,
whatever you want, honey. Have fun.
She missed out on her career as a singer and actress or whatever. So she's like, I'm gonna be doing this song that I wrote, and I'm gonna stand right in front of this Asian chick, and I'm gonna sing, "I want to be ninja."
It takes a lot of cojones.
I mean, not really, because it takes the lack of them to do something that stupid.
Oh boy.
Funny stuff though. Anyways, little cultural appropriation there. I like that she did it like in like the really bad Asian accent as well.
Yes.
I want to be ninja. Like,
and that's my question is like, would it make it better if we didn't try to have the accent? You know, like if we're not like shout the door, you know, if we're like shout the door, keep out the devil.
Yeah, so it's like when you hear these songs, when you hear these white kids singing these black songs, do they put on like an affectation, right?
Yes.
They absolutely do.
Because that's like we're trying to be like black people when we're doing
that sound, right?
So are we making fun of them in a way?
No. So when we sang in choir class, when we sang soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. You can't say, soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. No, you don't sing it like that. You sing, soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. The troubles of the world. The troubles of the world, right? I want to be my Jesus, right? You got to
be a ninja, right? Like you have to have
Yeah, you can't sing it like, I want to be ninja. It's got to be, I want to be ninja.
Right. It just rings better.
It just does, yeah. It just definitely sounds a little bit more Asian. Anyways, all right, listen, we got to run to the commercial break so we can go get The Educator, host of the Coralosophy podcast. Chris wants to talk about this. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Click like and subscribe, and we'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Goose Lodge in Jamestown, Kansas, your home away from home. Choose the comfort and privacy of our individual rooms, each equipped with its very own locking door and en-suite facilities. Or bring the whole family and make memories in our communal space. Snuggle up on our plush recliners or share a meal around the dining table that comfortably seats 8. Our kitchen is armed with everything you need, from a microwave to a full-size fridge. For a bird's eye view, book the Eagle's Nest. Enjoy the privacy, storage space, and its very own toilet and shower. For just $450 a night, reserve the entire lodge. Perfect for reunions or retreats, accommodating up to 8 guests. And remember, Snow Goose Lodge is a haven for kids and dogs alike. So bring the whole family. Book your stay now and get 20% off your first booking using the code WAKEUP.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should.
Good morning. Merry Christmas. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How are you feeling today? Everybody in a good mood? Well, you ought to be. It's Freedom Family Friday. We got two members of the Peterson family. Well, one here with us in studio, the lovely Stephanie Peterson. How you doing, Steffi?
I'm loving all the singing and dancing this morning.
Yeah, it's a very music-based show today.
That's
I hope
right.
everybody's having a good time today. Justin Peterson, my brother, will be joining us here in about 30 minutes from now. We're looking forward to hearing from him, another member of the Peterson family. Yeah, we've got a lot of great show left to go. Do us a favor, click like and subscribe to the channel if today's the first time that you're watching or listening to the Wake Up America show and you're like, hey, this is a lot of fun. Well, guess what? We do this show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. And we'd love to make your acquaintance, be your friend, hang out with us 5 days a week. So click subscribe so you don't forget who he is. All right, let's rock and roll. All right, so just a few minutes ago, we were talking about cultural appropriation on the Wake Up America show, specifically related to music. My brother, Justin, sent me this video that showed a white kid singing, well, I guess you could say an African song, but turns out the song wasn't really African. And they asked the question, should white kids be singing African songs? I mean, Stephanie, you're a Jew.
Right. Should I be singing Christian songs, right? I sang a ton of those
I know,
in my choir
and
career.
there's always this debate. Are we, are Jews white people? I think Adolf Hitler would say no.
Yes,
No, but
I did sing African songs in choir as well, and I sang Latin songs.
I sang African songs when I was growing up. I went to Ray-Pec High School with my buddy Stephen Rue, and we had a great time, and we sang Siahamba Kukanani Kwekos, and we sang Soon I Will Be Done with the Trouble of the World. We called them Negro spirituals. I don't even call them that anymore. Well, anyways, we're going to speak to a music educator who was reacting to this question of cultural appropriation on TikTok regarding white kids singing black songs. And he's the host of the Chorosophy podcast. His name is Chris Muntz, and he's joining us live right now. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
Good morning, Petersons.
Glad to have you here, Chris.
Glad to be.
So this you did the reaction video. We played it a little bit earlier, but there is a lot to unpack. So let's just start by having you set this up for us, if you will, Chris. What's the beef on TikTok? White kids singing black songs. Some people find this problematic.
Yeah, so the beef is essentially that we're in a cultural moment right now where we are, in my opinion, rightly in education talking about the need to diversify what we teach students. And I actually agree with that perspective. I do think that there are legitimate problems over the last 20, 30 years about the perspectives that have been taught to students. So we've got that on one side, right? We've got that kind of push to diversify education. But then on the other side, we have this idea, it usually comes from with respect to that content creator, we're talking about uneducated young white kids, typically, that have this perspective of, well, actually, in order to be respectful to these other cultures, we as white people then should not sing that music, or we should not act out that role in a play, or we should not do whatever it is. And so the beef essentially is that I don't see that we can have it both ways. In a country that is mostly low melanin content people, we can't diversify education and also not allow the whiter students in our classrooms to participate in that, or else we're not going to be able to. It's just math. We can't make their, for example, if I'm a composer of music and I'm a black person in America and I'm trying to sell music to make my living, of course, I don't want I don't want to push out 70% of the market. I'm going to want those people to also be able to sing my music. And so it comes from, I think, ultimately it comes from a well-intended misunderstanding of trying to be respectful to other cultures, but then we conflate things like skin color and culture, which aren't the same, and we also don't recognize that sometimes in order to put ourselves in other people's shoes to develop empathy and all of the benefits of diversity, we have to actually be able to experience each other's culture. So that's essentially what I was trying to do with that video, is point out some contradictions.
Okay, so it makes sense. The question of whether or not we can have a cultural exchange is a touchy one in the modern context, Chris, because now there is kind of like a desire for a resegregation, if you will, and this is going to be a big conversation between Justin and I when he comes on here in a little bit, because he lives in Boston. The mayor of Boston is under fire right now for asking for a no whites allowed Christmas party. Ivy League universities, and mostly this is happening in academia, but of course it's happening in the political world as well. Ivy League universities are having whites only, or excuse me, coloreds only graduation. It seems that there's kind of like a reversion, but now it's from the other side of the political aisle that's pushing for a sort of what do you call it?
Like they're reversing.
The reversing of this, yes.
So now it's not the majority keeping out the minority; it's the minority keeping out the majority.
But a lot of these things, a lot of these cultural trends, they really do originate in the arts, do they not, Chris? I mean, a lot of these problems that they start in the cultural world and then they make their way over to politics, don't they?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, yeah, so you mentioned that I host a podcast where most of my audience are music educators. It's the largest show related to music education in the world.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so I intersect with a lot of this idea that you're talking about. Within the arts, some of the most hyper identity focused people are gonna concentrate within the academic sphere, as you mentioned, but then also within the sphere of the arts. Now, what I would say though, the good news about this is that's not most people. That's actually a very small percentage of people who have gotten really good at being loud on social media. And so it's a misconception, in my opinion, the fact that my show is successful while talking with nuance and distinction about these issues like we're doing right now. Within that sphere is proof of that, in my opinion, where people actually want to understand the difference between Black and African, for example. They want to understand that not everything is broken down to the big five skin colors that were invented in like the 1500s to justify slavery. Like maybe we should not use those categories anymore because they're harmful. And instead, I could talk about the idea with my students that when we sing, you mentioned earlier, Sooner Will Be Done with the Troubles of the World, is an African-American spiritual. And yes, in some contexts, it's still okay to call them Negro spirituals. In fact, the leading academic book on that topic refers to them still in 2023 as Negro spirituals, because that's what they were referred to at the time.
That's what we called them in 1999 when I sang them, but has that changed?
It depends. It's like I said, it depends on who you're talking to, of whether or not you want to pick that battle of somebody being offended. You know, it depends on who you're talking to and in what context you're talking to them about it, and whether or not you're having that conversation on social media. Because again, that's just where all of the toxicity happens in my experience. But I can teach my students that distinction if I artfully do it and I explain it, because I believe that students deserve to know that just because the melanin spectrum looks the same from a person from Africa doesn't mean that they culturally share a connection with that spiritual Sooner Will Be Done. Because there is, for example, in Lee Summit, in our Kansas City area, we have tons of African first or second generation students. And that's changed in the last 5 or 6 years. Their parents are African. They have African names with African languages, various ones. They don't have a connection to that spiritual culturally. And it's important, I think, that students understand that we don't take somebody's music and just lump them all together based on what they look like. That's the problem with prejudice in the first place, is that I assume what you look like will tell me something about you. And I think that's where a lot of this tension is coming from. Some of those examples you mentioned of people trying to segregate by groups, it just perpetuates a problem that I thought in education we were trying to get past.
It's a fascinating question. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm joined now in studio by my smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife, Stephanie Peterson. How you doing, Stephanie? Thanks for sticking around with us today.
I actually have a question too. I wonder if this is going on over into like band class and orchestra class as well, because it's like, can you play jazz music? Can you play drum music? You know,
are the band kids having this struggle as well, Chris, or is it just a choir thing?
That is interesting. Because we've brought that up on my show before too. I've noticed that same thing, and the answer is no. It's a choir thing. Like when you talk to band teachers about this, they will look at you like a deer in the headlights, wondering why you're asking this question. Like
so it must be something about the words.
Yes.
Well, but it's got to. But right. It's well. Then if it's not in the band, then it's got to be in musical theater. Because could you do this? Could you do the musical Showboat? Where like one of the lines is, I've got N-word blood in me right now, but you don't say the N-word, you say the N-word,
Sure.
Right.
It's all on the accents.
How do you do the Crucible without a black slave playing Tituba? You know what I mean? Like I'm sure the musical theater kids are probably facing this as well, Chris.
Yeah, it definitely is in musical theater as well. And I think, and although I would say that it's not the same as choir and choral music in the sense that when we sing as a choir, we perform in the collective to tell a story. And in musical theater, of course, it's a little bit different where I'm trying to personally represent a concept or a person or a character. And I think that does make a distinction. And they've got different concerns. Like they've got to sell tickets and they've got to convince people in an audience that the story is real in order to do well and all of that. So I think, let me just say it this way. I'm not a musical theater person. I don't envy the dance that they have to dance. I think it's even maybe a little trickier than what we do.
Oh, it's way trickier. Justin will comment on that.
Just thinking about Hamilton, the musical, and how all black people are used.
It's okay to go one way, but it's not okay to go the other.
Right.
I mean, isn't that really what we're talking about here, Chris? I mean, if you suggested that black kids shouldn't be singing Mozart or singing, some choir arrangement set that was written by a white composer, you'd be laughed out of town. But this only goes one way. If a Latina kid got up and was singing "Soon I Will Be Done in the Trouble of the World," nobody's saying, "Hey, what's with the Latina kid singing the black spiritual songs?" It's really that they have a problem with white people. Let's just say it, Chris.
That is correct, and I will. Yes, in fact, it's worse than that. I wouldn't be laughed out of town if I told my black students that they can't sing Mozart. I would rightfully, in my opinion, be called a racist and canceled. Because that would be a horrible thing for me to say, and what a way to cheat my students out of a rich education is to tell them that based on what they look like, certain music is not for them. And so the way I'm trying to communicate this is that I refuse to do that to any of my students for any reason ever. In fact, we're going to treat every music tradition that we encounter in my classroom with the same respect that I would treat Mozart. Which is that we're gonna pull out that spiritual and we're gonna learn about its history. We're gonna learn about why it sounded the way it sounded. We're gonna learn about why certain dialectical choices were made linguistically. The same way that if I pulled out Mozart, we would be learning about why he wrote certain rhythmic patterns the way he did, why the instruments at that time period sounded like they sounded, so that we could make Mozart sound like Mozart. And so ultimately the solution to these things it comes from whether or not we're willing to treat everybody the same. And you're right, there is a double standard that happens when, but I will say, and I think this is important, when we talk about the they that are doing this, like I said at the beginning, I really think to the credit of the professionals in my industry, these are things that are not coming from black academic musicians. In fact, they are the ones out there oftentimes saying what I'm saying, which is that no, we need to treat this music like it's music like all of the other things, or else it's not going to survive. In fact, I did an episode very recently with the leader of this on this topic in the United States, Andre Thomas, who is a Black academic. He's retired now, professor emeritus, and he's an incredible spokesperson for the idea that everybody should be singing spirituals. In fact, it might be one of America's only truly American art forms in how it was created originally. And if we don't teach the next generation to sing it, we will lose what was in the late 1800s, which was called America's voice, was the African American spiritual. And in my opinion, should be taught in school as a critical aspect of our history. And if we don't allow 70% of the country to sing it, we will lose it.
I mean, let's be honest, Chris, we come from very white communities. We had like one black kid at Ray Peck in 1999 in the choir when we were there. So if we had limited ourselves to only white stuff, I mean, if you look at it and the way you explained it is that it's actually racist to suggest that only white people should sing only white songs, right? In some sense, you're excluding blacks from the community to an extent. You're excluding black music from it.
And we're going backwards to where we were. And that's that's the problem. And our communities have diversified a lot since you and I were in high school, and it's a completely different landscape. The considerations in the classroom are so much different than they were then in terms of cultural interaction. And what I've discovered is that in my world, because I'm to toot my own horn, I'm good at explaining this to kids. So when we do this to do this kind of stuff in my classroom is not a controversial thing. I do not have blowback from parents. I don't have blowback from administrators. I get to create my own little bubble of kids who understand why we're doing it. And
what will you do when the blowback comes? Not if the blowback comes, Chris, when the blowback comes, because it's coming.
I'll just explain it to them. And then I will move on and not deal with, I mean, if people are mean about it, I just don't deal with it. And that ultimately is a choice. And again, it comes back to the when you say the blowback will come, that's I think again a commentary on the social media aspect of things. Because when people, like, there have been parents who reach out to me and say they're concerned with a song here and there over the course of my career, and I will just encourage them to come talk to me. Like, here's my planning period. I'm happy to meet you at this time. I'm happy to meet after school. In 100% of those cases, a conversation solves the problem.
I needed a teacher like you when I was in choir because I was saying at the beginning of the show, when I was in choir, we did a Christian song. We performed it at a church. And because I'm Jewish, my mom didn't feel comfortable with me having a solo talking about Jesus. So she basically made me not do the solo, and I had to play an instrument instead. So I wish that you were there to kind of explain those things to parents like her.
I told the story, Chris, when my dad was a kid and he grew up in the 50s. My dad was a kid, he's Southern Baptist, and they had a ban on dancing. And so he and my Aunt Carmen had to sit on the side of the gym, and they weren't allowed to dance while the other kids danced. Right. But I mean, like, it's through dancing, it's through music, it's through musical theater, it's through the arts that it's probably at least should be the safest place for a cultural exchange. But now it feels as if the well has been poisoned by what I would call wokeism or critical theory, which is to divide us against one another because critical theory sees the world as oppressors and oppressed. This manifests itself through the arts because the arts are, and I say this as someone who grew up in the arts and has a musical theater degree and has worked in television, radio, stage my entire life and career. But the arts are mostly populated by those who have, and I won't say even a liberal mindset, I would call it a leftist mindset, because I consider myself to some extent a liberal. I'm a libertarian, but I believe in freedom. But the arts seem to me, Chris, to be getting smaller and smaller, and the boxes that we're putting people in our ability to creatively express ourselves is being restricted. Take a look at Hollywood films. You know, much of what Hollywood does these days is, I think, boring because it's considered safe. Is there any room for experimentation or danger in the arts anymore, or does everything have to fit inside these little boxes? Do you feel the walls closing in, Chris?
Well, that's a really good that's a good question, and I think I'm glad you brought up wokeism and critical theory, because that is something that You mentioned, or we mentioned at the beginning, that the name of my show is Core Philosophy. It's got philosophy built right in, and the reason for that is that I'm a nerd, and I've been reading about this stuff since way before Trump talked about it and made it political, which is essentially that there is a lot of critical theory that gets injected into the arts landscape simply by academics who have approached art from that perspective. Now, on my show, what we try to do is try to point out that a critical theory is simply a tool. And I find it very strange in the political landscape that we've now segregated ourselves again into people who think critical theory is bad and people who think critical theory cannot be criticized. And those are both very, very weird positions to me as somebody who studied it before it became political, which is that it's like saying, are you against screwdrivers? So you see someone come along and they're trying to hammer a nail into a piece of wood with a screwdriver, and you say, that was pretty dumb. And then they say, are you against screwdrivers? And I would say, well, no, that's a stupid question. You just are using the wrong tool. And so critical theory is simply a tool. It's a way to look at a thing in order to get a certain type of answer back, which is it's like asking an AI a certain type of a question. It's going to get you if you ask a critical theory question, it's going to get you a negative answer. That's its job. Its job is to look at a system and figure out what's wrong with the system. So if I'm not going to get like America is a great place answer from a critical theorist. That's not their job. Their job is to figure out where the problem.
My problem personally with critical theory, we don't have to go into it in too much detail, is just simply that, you have said in your video, and I think you hear before, essentially to a degree, is that you see race as a construct, a social construct to a large degree, because we are all humans and we are all part of the same race, right? So within what we're really talking about are different social constructs. And my problem with critical theory is that it does see race as an intrinsic trait. In many ways, the Nazis and the critical theories agree on the same thing, that we are all genetically tied to some intrinsic qualities that we cannot change. The old nature versus nurture argument, which as a philosopher I'm sure you're aware of, I'm not one who would say completely that we are devoid of any kind of racial or genetic traits that define us to an extent, but I'm much more of a nurture person and a free will person rather than an intrinsic qualities person. But again, that's neither here nor there. I want to give you the last word here, Chris, and to share with us a little bit about the Coralosophy podcast. So for those who've been enjoying this conversation and might be more interested in hearing what you have to say, if they can follow you or subscribe to you, would you like to share with us a little bit about that before we let you go?
Sure. Yeah, and of course, my show is geared towards music educators, but I have a pretty large audience of people who are not, and they just are interested in the state of education. They're interested in the philosophies that we intersect within our world, and I just tell it through my perspective as a music teacher. You can find it at coralosophy.com. You can find it on any podcast player, on YouTube as well. And what I would say is that when we try to have these types of conversations on my show, it is very important to me to try to see the humanity in everybody with every perspective that might come to this topic, and so I really don't see a whole lot of bad guys here. I just see very, very misled younger generation related to these topics. We're not taught. My own kid came to me recently and said, "Do we have an ethnicity or are we white?"
I mean, there's no stupid questions, but I mean, the premise is there's a lot of confusion around these topics. But I look forward to listening to your podcast and learning more about your points of view on this, Chris. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today. Keep an eye out for more conversations like these, and if you have news stories that you think are relevant to what it is we talk about here on the show, please feel free to pitch it, because we'd love to have you come back.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chris. He's a music educator, and he is the host of the Coralosophy podcast, which you can download on any of your mobile devices. What do you guys think of Chris Muntz?
He is so smart.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with him on everything that he was saying there.
Really?
But yeah, to some extent, I think that...
I'd be curious to hear
I think it was a little bit of a misguided view of critical theory, for example.
Oh, okay. I don't understand this. He's talking about critical race theory, right?
Well, yes. So there's critical theory actually is more of an umbrella term, and critical race theory is underneath that umbrella.
Okay, so I don't really know about critical theory. I've heard critical race theory.
Well, here's the thing. My brother Justin is going to be joining us here in about less than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So Justin actually can probably give us a better working definition for you as well. So I would look it up right now, but honestly, I'm doing a show in the middle of this stuff. So.
Oh, it's okay.
And I could explain it to you the best I could, but I would hate to get something wrong. So I want to make sure that I get it right. So we go to commercial break here in about 5 minutes.
I mean, it's all just such complex stuff, way too complex for even children in school to understand.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, right? I think, they're going to have to grapple with ideas, and kids are always going to be the ones who set the culture, especially when it comes to the culture of the arts. Young people are always going to be the ones who set the music culture. They're always going to be the ones who define what culture is. That's what kids do, right? They define online culture, for example.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back to my choir days. I mean, I don't think anybody ever questioned our teacher about why we were singing certain things. It was the parents, obviously, that probably had certain issues, but us as kids, we never put up a stink about these things.
Well, we didn't think about race and things like that. But I mean, here's the thing: what was the genealogical makeup of the schools that you went to?
They were very diverse. The ones I went to. Oh, yeah.
Not
yeah.
mine.
I went to the International Academy, which was a high school filled with German, Russian, Black, Muslim. I mean, you had everybody there. And same with in elementary school, too. I mean, we had very diverse, Indians. That was my main group of friends.
Chaldeans, right?
Indians. I hung out with the Indians. Chaldeans were there too, but I was with the Indians.
All right. Well, speaking of critical race theory, the mayor of Boston, where my brother lives, is under fire for letting the cat out of the bag that she was having a no whites allowed Christmas party. Let's take a listen to how she's responding
I think
to this.
We've had individual conversations with everyone, so people understand that it was truly just an honest mistake that went out in typing the email field, and I look forward to celebrating with everyone at the holiday parties that we will have besides this one as well. So it is my intention that we can again be a city that lives our values and create space for all kinds of communities to come together.
Okay.
She's so tactful with her words.
Yeah, she is.
I look forward to all of the other parties besides this one.
She's married to a white man, by the way, so I guess he would not have been allowed at
Given
the Christmas
some of the
party.
strife that exists, though, in this council, are you concerned this lends itself at all to further divisiveness?
No, I mean, again, this is a group that has been in place for many, many years. We want to be a city where everyone's identity is embraced and that there are spaces and communities that we can help support.
Given some of the strife that exists.
Okay.
Okay, the word spaces is very triggering for me because whenever I go to a social work continuing education seminar, they talk about space.
Honored to be a part of this group. It is a long-standing affinity group that has grown in recent years here in Boston and Massachusetts.
It's the electeds of color group is what she's talking about. So the people who are invited to the Christmas party.
The Congressional Black Caucus or the Black and Latino elected officials at Legislative Caucus at the State House. This is one that spans all levels of government and is a space for people to build coalitions and represent communities. There are many, many such coalitions that exist, and each one should have their own space to connect and build and do that work and
except for the white people, right? So
coalitions and spaces
everyone
are BS.
should have their own space. Everyone should have their own space except for the white people. Whites only party, not allowed. Coloreds, yes. Let's hear from Justin about this. He can clear up the critical theory question. He'll talk about his mayor who sucks. We'll talk about that on Freedom Family Friday when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Siahamba kukanain kwekos, siahamba kukanain kwekos. Siahamba kukanain kwekos, siahamba kukanain kwekos. Siahamba, siahamba. Hamba kukanaini kwekos. Thank you very much. Yes.
I wish I could have as much rhythm as Africans. Like, I am envious.
You're Jewish. You wrote every damn good Christmas song that there is. Good morning.
I want the hip action. I want the voice, all of it.
Welcome to Wake Up America show. It's time to rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson, your Black choir spiritual leader. Sing a few Negro spirituals this morning with my lovely Jewish wife.
Hello.
We're very diverse here in the morning. How you doing, Stephanie? You still trying to control the world with your Jewish
doing
schemes?
great. I'm just trying to think of like Jewish songs other than I have a little dreidel.
Dreidel, I made you out of clay, had a little dreidel.
Nobody can like culturally appropriate us, really.
My wife, my smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife, Stephanie Peterson.
Hava Nagila. There we go.
It's the Wake Up America show where everything is offensive, and if you don't have a thick skin, you are in the wrong place, bro. Welcome to the Wake Up America show, where on Freedom Family Friday, we bring in members of the Peterson family, 1, 2, and 3. Justin Peterson joining us live from Boston, Mass. What's up?
Hello.
How you doing, JP?
I'm doing good. Happy Friday. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Aren't you coming here in like a few days?
Yeah, I am. I'm there on Monday.
Crazy.
I know.
Glad to have you here, Justin. Appreciate you very much.
Thanks for having me, and I was excited to get the invite.
One of my favorite songs that I used to sing in choir with Mr. Orr, our teacher, rest in peace, was Elijah Rock, 1, 2, Soon I Will Be Done with the Troubles of the World, and 3, Siahamba Kukanain Kwekos. We really loved singing those Negro spirituals, and when we sang them with an affectation that might get us run out of town, or maybe invited to a Christmas party in Boston.
I am dead. I'm dead.
How did that woman get elected? Did you vote for her, Justin?
I did not have any say in that whatsoever. I had no say.
Good.
Zero
say. Give us your reaction before we talk about your idiot mayor, Justin. Let's hear your reaction to Chris Muntz. He's a music educator, the host of the Choirosophy podcast. His take on what's happening in music, specifically white kids singing black kids songs.
Well, I love. So first of all, I have to admit my bias that I'm a big fan of Chris, and I think Chris is as a bulwark against a lot of. He's bringing to a dialogue which lacks oftentimes nuance and depth. He brings that with his work, and I think that's one of the reasons why I admire him so much, because people who want to make these superficial arguments about, these very, very shallow arguments, I can't with that stuff because, as you were saying, I also am a person who grew up in a musical environment, again, which was largely rural Missouri, white, but we did a lot of African American music. Go Tell It on the Mountain, by the way, is an African American
Oh, I love
spiritual.
that song. Yes.
That Go Tell It on the Mountain is a spiritual. We also did
Oh,
somebody's.
it's an African spiritual?
Yeah, it's an African American spiritual. Go Tell It on the Mountain. Go Tell It
Wow.
on the Mountain. And so when we would
I
do
thought
that,
it was like a white Christian person song. I never knew that.
no, that's absolutely
Wow.
an African about
A little too much soul for the white Christian
yeah.
there. So.
And the
Interesting.
the Fisk singers, we should look those up. There was a black ensemble, choral ensemble in the late 1800s, early 1900s that would go around. The Fisk singers, Fisk, and they would go and sing these, and they had made choral music. They brought that music all over the country. No, but I love Chris's, he really, I think, is logical. I mean, people who use logic, oh man, I'm in their fan club. But I think that the other thing that was not mentioned too was the idea about style. In other words, when you perform music in a particular way, what you're really trying to do is match the style of the song, so that if somebody heard it, they would see or hear that that's stylistically correct. Because in music, as a musician, one of the things we're always trying to do, no matter what we do in music, is try to be as stylistically true to the music as we possibly can be. And that we don't, for example, perform music out of style. This is happening. This is also in classical music, right? I mean, there is difference between a composer like a Mozart and a composer like Giacomo Puccini, for example. They are both classical composers, but their styles are very different, and you have to perform them in different ways. So it's not mocking to deliver a performance in a stylistically correct way. I mean, so I think.
Okay, I was actually wondering that. I was like, is it less offensive if we just like be the white people that we are and sound white?
No, because I think
and like pronounce things like we normally do.
Yeah, because I mean, I think sometimes you'll hear performers, like, for example, on voice competition shows, where a white performer comes out and they kill let's say an African or black song, right? And it's like, holy crap. It's like that person was, what made them really good was that they mastered the style, right? That they sound authentic. That's what really captures an audience, is the authenticity. When you have a bunch of white kids going, go tell it on the mountain, what you have is not necessarily a racial issue. You have a style issue, that the style is off. So it has nothing to do with race, and it has everything to do with stylistically authentic performance.
It's interesting. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Thank you, Andy Opperman, for dropping $10 in the tip jar.
Thank you, Andy. You're always so sweet to us.
Andy is very, very generous. He says, welcome back to the show, Justin. Thank you very much for that. And Solorio just dropped $10 in as well, and says, thanks for what y'all do. We appreciate that.
That's
Thank
a
you.
new name in the chat.
It is. Ashley Ann 8 also joining us here as well. Nice to see you. Okay, so the choir thing, we've got so many topics to get through, Justin, and I'm going to move on to the next one. Here's the thing. Why do you think that there is this? I would say that people of color feel as if white people cannot understand the minority experience. Because if a white person played Othello, people would say that's ridiculous. But when a black person plays Hamlet, it's just considered to be like a different take on it, right? Like, can a black person understand the experience of the aristocratic founding fathers of the late 18th century and the American Revolution to create a musical like Hamilton? Can they understand what it's like to be Alexander Hamilton? Can a poor black person in the inner city truly understand what it feels like to be Thomas Jefferson, a polymath who owned slaves and created a country and wrote the Declaration of Independence? If so, can a white person understand the experience of a Moor in 13th century, wherever, Othello was set, at the time? Like, is there a belief culturally that we just can't understand one another's experience, or that white people can't understand the experiences of minorities, but that road does go the other way? Minorities can't understand our experiences.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of standpoint epistemology, which just basically means that because of particular markers, you have access to knowledge that other people can't get access to. This happens in all markers, whether it's black, white, Asian, gay, straight, Jewish, whatever. It's like this idea that I've got access to particular knowledge that other people can't have access to. And I just don't think, as a person who values knowledge and truth, that's actually a thing. You might have experiences, right? Which they call lived experiences, which I just call experiences, because nobody has a dead experience. I've never known anybody be like, how else can you have an
it.
experience if you're not living? You're dead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can really understand each other. Nobody can understand each other.
We try. We try.
Yeah. I mean,
this is my whole thing, though. That's what the arts is for. Now, this is where I get philosophical, because my whole philosophy about the arts is that the arts allows us to see things and to experience things to foster connection and empathy in a way that, if you like, for example, I think about like the book Anna Karenina. Okay, so I'm gonna go full like art. You're gonna be like, oh Lord, Anna Karenina, Tolstoy in the morning. Yeah. So if you read about the story of Anna Karenina in the newspaper, you'd be like, oh, what a floozy. She stepped out on her husband. She left her kid. She's trash. So if you read about her in the newspaper, you'd hate her. But then if you read the story of Anna Karenina and you look at all the factors and the circumstances that led to her actions, suddenly you get empathy. And then suddenly that empathy enables you to broaden your sense of who you are as a person, to say to yourself, gee, if I was in the same situation, I might do the same thing. The ancient Greeks knew this. And that's one of the reasons why theater was considered to be a civil good, because it was a way for people to look at themselves collectively and say, man, I might sleep with my mom if the circumstances were, were specific, No, like Oedipus, like the story of Oedipus, who slept with his mother.
That's why I respect actors so much, because they're able to truly like get in the mindset of the person that they're portraying.
Like Justin, we always played when we were growing up in shows and musical theater, and certainly you're still in that world. We always played characters that we were not. I mean, other than like, the romantic ingenues.
That's right.
But those were always the most boring characters.
Well, I mean, this has always been my argument about the gay thing, because it's like you say, well, only a gay person can play a gay role. I'm like, that's horse patootie. Like, that's just bull crap. Like, I want to see Heath Ledger do that part. So like, hire the best.
I loved him in Brokeback
I know.
Mountain.
Hire the best person for the part, and
Dallas Buyers Club with Matthew McConaughey playing a gay AIDS patient, and he was not gay at all.
Because let's also get real that like gay people have been playing straight for a long time. So, like, come on, like we've got experience. We can share that. We can share that experience.
Gay.
Who?
Next, you'll tell me Liberace was gay.
Oh no, he was a hetero all the way.
Yeah. well, who was the famous actor that was the case where he was always like a closet case?
Rock Hudson.
Rock Hudson. Yeah. And he died of AIDS.
Yeah, American
and wasn't he like best friends with Ronald Reagan?
Oh, I think he was.
Wasn't
That's
Rock
right.
Hudson the one? Wasn't Rock Hudson the one who, like, because he made friends with Nancy Reagan? Nancy Reagan was the one who she softened her stance on the AIDS pandemic in the 80s.
Not, actually. That's
she did not. Well, maybe it was Reagan, but I think Rock Hudson had some influence on them.
Well, I mean, this is where I go like full crazy on Reagan, because the HIV/AIDS crisis started in 1981. I mean, when first the New York Times, I think it was July of '81, where they finally were like, "This is weird. We're finding this weird virus," and it took until 1988 for Reagan to even say the word AIDS. So the reason that Rock Hudson got involved in that was because Rock Hudson was in a Parisian hospital and needed to be transferred to some other, maybe an American hospital, or there was some other hospital that he needed to get access to for his treatment. And the only way that they could figure out that they could get somehow him over into that other hospital was to reach out to Nancy Reagan in the White House, because they were old Hollywood friends, right? And for him to say, can you, help me get into this other hospital? And Nancy Reagan sent back, a memo basically saying something to the effect of like, well, the White House doesn't really want to get involved in this. So it was kind of like they were like, sorry, Rock, we don't want to be associated with, you. Meanwhile, of course, you know as well as I do, Reagan and Nancy Reagan both were surrounded by homos in Hollywood. Come on, like
really?
It wasn't.
Oh yeah, because he was an
come
actor.
on,
yeah,
that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere, So I mean, I'm like.
Oh yeah.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, be ready to be offended. I'm Austin Peterson. This is my wife Stephanie and my brother Justin, and we're basically everything that is offensive in the world: a Jew, a gay, and a white straight guy. So you don't get more offensive than the three of
You're
us.
A cis man.
Cis, white, straight, hetero, gay, whatever. Right. So can't we blame this on Anthony Fauci, by the way? But anyways, it's Freedom Family Friday. We're hanging out with my brother Justin and my wife Stephanie, and we're all having fun. We're all Petersons, spelled S-E-N. We are immediate family. Danish, yes.
Which is a culture, by the way.
A culture, not a race. Justin, your mayor sucks a big one. But it's since I'm on a podcast, I can say this. It's a white dick that she sucks. She's married to a white guy.
Oh my God, cringe.
Same with AOC. What is it? All these powerful women.
She has a colored. My dad's probably mad at me for saying a bad word, but she was having a no whites allowed Christmas party. But she is married to a white guy, so racial justice in the streets and colonized in the sheets.
Oh man. Now, wasn't it that it wasn't supposed to get out? So wasn't that it's like I'm not mad I got the cookie. I'm just mad I got caught with the cookie, my hand in the cookie jar.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, she's not upset that she was doing it. She's upset she got in trouble.
Caught, right? Yeah. So I mean,
so it's okay to segregate people in secret.
Yes.
Yeah, as long as you do, under the radar. Well, what's funny to me about this whole situation is, obviously we've talked about this idea about power, right? So much of the critical theory ideas that you were talking about earlier, center themselves in power and who has power and how is that power being used. These are the ruling class. This isn't like, the impoverished of Dorchester here in Boston. These are the elected ruling class of Boston doing this. So these aren't the oppressors and the oppressed, right? These are the oppressors because they're the government ruling class. So that argument on its face falls off, because it's like, you are the ones with the power. You are the ones with the power. But what kills me is obviously that people in this town will go along with that and be like, oh, but that's the right thing to do. That's totally the right thing to do. It's like, am I living in the upside down? Because that's really kind of how it feels. It's like, this isn't right to segregate people, period. I thought we were past this. But yeah, I think she's a joke. I'm like, fix the T. The transportation system in this city is literally next to like third world levels. It's so bad. And for them to fix it in this town, $25 billion it would take for them to just fix the transit system. People can't get to work. People live in this community, in this city, and they cannot go to and from work in a timely fashion. They cannot expect to get on a publicly funded transit system and get to and from work in a timely fashion. So what do they end up doing? They all end up driving, what does that do to the city? That congests the traffic in the city because now everyone's on the road. I'm like, fix the inherent structural problems of the city before we start playing, patty cake, and having these cotillions, these racial cotillions. I'm so over it.
It was funny because during the pandemic, there were, all these riots, racial riots that were occurring across the country. And you would see videos of Asian people being violently attacked by blacks.
Right.
And the narrative from leftist Asians was that this was white supremacy.
Right.
That the reason that the violence that was being committed against Asians was somehow because of white supremacy. Is that where your mayor is coming from?
I mean,
is that probably her view?
The conflict,
she could
also
have a black guy come and slap her in the face.
No, I mean, it's also like with the idea about the Transgender Day of Remembrance, right? Like this whole thing. It's like 26 transgender people died in the United States, and yet we're being told it's a genocide. The people that are being killed are usually killed by people they know, right? And they're not being killed by some random affluent white dude walking down the street who's like, oh my God, I've got to kill that transsexual. That doesn't happen. So it's a narrative.
They're usually killed by their boyfriends.
They're killed by their boyfriends, or they're killed by in drug or
they're drug dealers.
Exactly. So there's not people are leaving trans people alone in most general situations, right?
Yeah.
But this idea of there's a genocide.
White guards aren't going down and hanging out in the cold in Chicago in the middle of the night downtown looking for transgenders and looking for what's his name? Who was the guy who did the fake hate crime?
Oh yeah, Jesse Smollett. Jesse Smollett.
Yeah. Jesse Smollett. Yeah, they're not walking around with MAGA hats, carrying nooses, looking for guys, black guys and transgenders coming out of Subway.
Most people, let me just get real. Most people don't care. Most people need to go to need to go to work. They got to feed their kids. They got to live, live the best way they know how to live and let live. Most people just don't care, but it's this idea of I've got to push a story, that a story has to be pushed. And if a story goes against if reality is against the story, well, then we have to memory hold the reality, right? We have to forget that the reality, oh no, don't forget that. So
I mean, I really think most of the homophobia and racism happens behind closed doors, at like family dinners, where your loved ones are using the N-word and talking bad about gay people. It's like, that's where it happens.
Exactly
they don't usually take it outside.
Is it really racist to just say a racial slur or to tell a racial joke? Doesn't racism have to actually impact someone, right? Like, isn't racism like, I'm not hiring you because you're black? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't know. I mean, I think if I'm in a group of people and somebody tells a really truly racist joke, I think that to any person who is liberal minded, I think that is offensive. And
no.
When I have a family member that uses the N-word, usually it makes me think a little differently about that person.
I agree. Same.
It depends on the context.
Oh no, I
the
don't.
Context. If they're very serious about it and they're using it as like a true term.
Jokes. Like,
well, here's the thing: the problem,
racist jokes, they're hilarious.
The problem is though that there's racism 1.0 and then there's racism 2.0, and I think what racism 2.0 does is that it softens out what's really the real problem, which is racism 1.0, right? Like the OG version of racism. So
about like first world problem.
Well,
racism,
but
right?
The other thing is that it's such a third rail issue. I mean, I just think about myself like 2 years ago. I couldn't even have this conversation with you 2 years ago because it is such a hot button, hot topic issue that I would have felt like I was going to literally step on a landmine and explode. And I think that's part of the problem is that to silence people or to kill dialogue is a bad thing. But like I said, I feel like we were going in a really good direction with, I mean, if you look at you can go back and look at footage of the 90s and the 80s and be like, wow, look at people just like coming together and like people don't give a crap and they're just like mixing and people are just like doing their thing.
We were on the right track. Yeah. And then somewhere towards the end of the 80s, it started with, I'm offended because you made a misogynist joke. And it was the postmodern feminism that started to come to the forefront. Women in the workplace. Let's break the glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton. Like,
well,
let's
here's the thing. It goes to this idea, which is the idea that if I can tell you that I'm offended, I can control your speech. At the end of the day.
Exactly. George Carlin had a joke about that. He's like, saying you're offended is really just I want you to shut up and I want to control you.
Exactly. It's really an effort to control. Offense
and that's why like racist jokes, I don't like. Get offended about things like that because I know that if I do, then they can control me. Like if somebody's trying to do it to gin me up, if they're trying to get me angry, and like trust me, somebody, Stephanie's Jewish, and during the whole Israel-Hamas conflict, people were flinging. I would say racist, but Jews are not a race. They're flinging ethno jokes and racial hate at us. And I don't respond. I don't engage. I don't fight with those people because I know that gives them power over me. Right. But if someone is actually making a Jewish joke, I mean, there are a lot of very funny Jewish jokes.
Yeah, there's a difference between joking and being serious. Yes. Right. So like the family members I'm talking about, that I've seen at family dinners, those people are being serious. Yeah. There is real hate behind a lot of these things.
It's cruelty.
But you are not going to have like, Justin, you and I said, we did not go to work and hang out with the Mexicans that we worked with, on the job site and not hear funny jokes about Mexicans or blacks or whites.
Great jokes are fine.
Yeah, and they were always kidding, right? They were always joking. They weren't hateful. They were racist jokes, but it didn't come from a position of hate.
Well, because we also, I hate to say like Pollyanna, but we loved each other. And I think that they're like coworkers and things who love each other and they tease each other, and it's like they take it on the chin because they realize that their relationship is not really predicated on those extenuating external factors, right? So you can have that kind of like bonhomie and you can have like that teasing, and that's actually one of the things in the 80s with comedy that made the 80s so much fun. And it actually alleviated a lot of racial tension because when you can laugh at something, right? When there's laughter and it's like we're sharing in on the joke, it makes people feel more comfortable and like at ease. And I do believe that laughter is a healing thing. It makes people feel better. Laughter is good for us.
Sure.
Oh,
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Today's Freedom Family Friday. I know that we're on the front page of rumble.com, so thank you to Rumble for that. And for many of you, you're probably watching us for the very first time, and we're grateful and glad to have you here. Would you do me a favor and click that like button and subscribe to the channel here on Rumble? We stream this show every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, so we'd love to have you come back and join us. Freedom Family Friday means that it's Peterson's all all the way down. So my wife, Stephanie, joining us right now. Nice to see Stephanie. And my brother, Justin Peterson, who's joining us live right now from Boston. We're grateful to have him here on the show as well. So we basically, this show is mostly offensive. Like everything that we talk about is offensive for the most part. We're offensive people. Just our own.
I believe I offend people.
Well, you're a Jew, so everybody hates you, right? But the thing is that this, if you are thin-skinned, if talking about religion or sex or relationships or politics or culture or racist jokes or Jewish jokes or if any of this stuff offends you, you are in the wrong place. And I hate to tell you that. I don't like to run people off, but this is really a podcast for people who have thick skin, because there are no sacred cows here. There are only sacred statues, apparently, to gods or to Satan in Iowa, or there were until someone ripped it down. Latest news out of Iowa is that there was a statue to a god, or I guess a demon, Baphomet. It's called a Satanist statue, but it's really to some demon that's I guess named in the Bible. But the Satanist church, which is a legitimate church put together in Iowa, had a Baphomet statue put in the Capitol as a means to troll Christians during the holiday.
Oh, it's in the Capitol?
It was
like an actual government building.
Yes.
Oh.
Right. Well, because and this was organized by the Satanic Church, who put it together as a means to say, well, if we have religious freedom, and if you're going to put your religious cap sign in the building, then we're going to have our religious sign in the building. Well, apparently some guy from, I think, Oklahoma or whatever.
Iowa.
Well, no.
Mississippi.
Yeah, Mississippi.
Yes.
So this guy from Mississippi was there. He was upset. He was a Christian, and he went out and he destroyed the statue in an act of, I guess, heroism or villainy, depending on how you feel about this. But Justin, are you ready to offend everyone who's listening?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, the Church of Satan, isn't that what it's, or the Satanic Church? What is that? What is the name of it? Isn't that what it's called? Yeah, I think they're down they're up the street from me. I think they're up in Maine or New Hampshire or Vermont. They're up there north. There's a very funny documentary actually about them, about how they go around doing this, because people will put up like the 10 Commandments, or they put up different things like that in public spaces that are taxpayer funded. So then they come in and they go, oh, well, if you can do that, let's just, we'll do ours too. And that's kind of the point. Right, and they're kind of showing a loophole. They're kind of demonstrating a loophole in the system, where it's like, well, we're going to favor one religion or over another one. I mean, obviously, I feel like if you like, I thought, so I'm laughing in my mind, because I thought tearing down statues was bad. I thought like the right, the Republicans were against tearing down statues. So,
but Justin, this is
Thomas
different.
Jefferson,
It's
not
different.
a satanic people.
That's
different.
Thomas Jefferson is a man of God. Well, he's a deist.
Not really. He was a deist, but okay, try
it. Well, Deo. Quest Fanning dropped $2 in tip jar. Thanks, Quest. He says, but you're each one of the good ones. He says, yes, we do get away with being heretics and being radicals because of the fact that we're not leftists.
No.
But I did run a poll last night on my Twitter account, and I asked my audience, would you rather vote for a communist Christian or an atheist libertarian? And the atheist libertarian ran away with it. A lot of people were saying you can't be a Christian and a communist, but
communism says no religion, right?
Official communism, but it's just like a lot of things. It's like, what's official? Is there such a thing as official Christianity? No, because there's hundreds of different types of. And people were saying, "Oh, well, you're not you can't be a communist and be a Christian." But there is liberation theology. There are Christian socialists. I mean, the people who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance, for example, the Bellamy brothers, they were Christian socialists, and Christian socialism has been a movement that's been around in the United States a lot longer than libertarianism has been around in the United States.
Right.
So the question, I asked that question, and I think people answered to the extent they would rather live in a society governed by a person who would allow them to have freedom of religion rather than to live in kind of the dull gray.
Well, here's where I have to say, I've been reading a lot of conservative Christian, just books, right? Because I'm just interested to see what they have to say. The Christians hate the Enlightenment. They hate it because Christianity was the first time that Christianity was ever challenged as a system of governance or a system of walking in the world. The Enlightenment was the first thing to throw off the fetters of religion and say, no, we're going towards a more humanistic direction. So it's amazing to see how many Christian authors are so anti-Enlightenment, which is funny to me because I'm just like, okay, what's your alternative? Well, we know what that is. It's theocracy. So
George Washington was a Christian, and he was, a member of the Enlightenment. But
I mean, that's the thing too. Like, I don't think people understand that our country was founded in a particular time, in a particular understanding of reality, and in a particular understanding of philosophy, and that was the Enlightenment. That is what our foundational governance is, and that's why when people are like
Enlightenment, I'm sorry, I'm not.
So
really
the Enlightenment
aware.
was a philosophy.
It pushed back against the Christian, the moral authoritarianism and the non-separation of church and state, essentially, to a large degree.
Okay, so the Enlightenment wanted to do the separation of church and state.
Yeah, the United States got lucky because during our American Revolution, our founding fathers were not able to put together a winning coalition in the United States without the Jews, without the Baptists. They had to create a freedom of religion here in the United States, or else they could not have won the American Revolution because and so it was literally it was a political move that they created a separation of church and state.
Right.
But in France, they had to have a bloody, violent revolution. They had to actually murder priests and kill them and kick them out of the church because they would not. And it happened in Japan as well during World War II. At the end of World War II, we had to threaten the Japanese with destroying all of their temples if they did not separate church and state. So, I mean, it wasn't until the Cold War in the United States that American religion started to become weaponized because of the fear of communist atheism. But
even our Pledge of Allegiance.
Write some letter to the Jewish people. I remember George Washington wrote a letter to the Jewish people.
Yes, because they were afraid, because the Jews were afraid that we were going to establish a theocracy in the United States, the government based on the Christian religion. But Washington knew that he needed the Jews as part of the coalition to fight back against the British. So and to create the government of the United States, they wanted buy-in from all of the religious denominations.
Well, and even Jefferson himself in that Treaty of Tripoli said that the United States is in no way founded upon the Christian religion. I mean, that's Thomas Jefferson. So I mean,
Adams.
Was it John Adams or was it Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah, John Adams was the one who wrote the Treaty of Tripoli underneath Thomas Jefferson's presidency.
Oh, okay.
When they but the Treaty of Tripoli did say specifically that they saw it as that way. But they were enlightened Christians. It's just modern Christians, and I would say in large part it had to do with the Cold War, Justin, from the 1950s until today. The fear of communist atheism or atheistic communism led the modern church to become radicalized and for a new form of Christian nationalism to arise that is inherently hostile and exclusionary to a view of a separation of church and state that we pioneered with the Enlightenment. Am I correct?
No, you're right. I think that's what Christian nationalism is, right? So the idea, the fair equality, the idea is that if it's on taxpayer money, there is an establishment clause, right? Which Christians also don't like, by the way, because it's an impediment, right? Everybody's working their angle as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Everybody's working their angle. So, if you're going to put up a statue of you cannot be mad about a statue of Baphomet getting torn down and then in the same breath turn around and be upset about a nativity scene being torn down. Like,
absolutely,
you can't. Like,
and
you just
I wonder,
not if you're consistent. Not if you're consistent.
Well, you can be mad, but you can't.
But you won't be consistent. But you can't also say that you're against the separation of church and state or for it or whatever.
Well, it deals a lot with a lot of anxiety. So Christians ever since their beginning have had a persecution complex. Right, because they were persecuted in their foundation. But I heard somebody say today, Christianity is the most persecuted religion, and I'm like, have you been? Where are you living?
But also, when the colonies were around, right, in the earlier days of the colonies, you had a lot of warring factions of Christians against each other in the colonies, right? They were going at each other. It was more like, is America going to be Anglican? Is America going to be Lutheran? Is America it was that these were all the factions that were fighting, and then the government was like, you know what, we don't want to put any of y'all in charge of the government, and that was the great fear when JFK got elected, was that he was going to make the whole thing Catholic, right?
I'm going to give this to you, Stephanie, but I mean, when the Constitution was drafted, they were like, and it had to go to the states to be ratified. There was no way that the Constitution would have been ratified amongst the many states if it endorsed one particular religion or another, because you had the Pennsylvania Quakers, you had the Southern Baptists, and it was never going to happen. Stephanie wants to weigh in. Yeah.
Wondering wondering if I'm misunderstanding the separation of church and state and exactly what it entails. So it's like, can any religious symbols be put in government buildings? Is that allowed with separation of church and state? Technically.
No, because it's an endorsement
Depends.
of religion. That's the whole thing about it. It's
Right.
that the
So
state
there
cannot
shouldn't be
endorse
Christmas
one.
trees,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's a funny thing because
Christmas trees were not explicitly Christian.
No.
Actually,
Right. It's a pagan thing.
They were, yeah.
But is pagan a religion?
Yes,
It is?
pagan,
Okay.
pagan is a religion, right? So my thing is that I honestly feel like either let everybody have their statues in there, or let nobody have them.
That's my
and preferably nobody, right? So like preferably just like, why can't you just do the people's business? Why does everything wouldn't you think that if somebody got up there and started giving a speech about Islam and Allah, that we'd all roll our eyes and be like, can we please move on, like so we can actually talk about the business of the people?
Right.
But there's an anxiety there, and remember, religion gives you power. Religion is about authority and power, right? To give to the priests. And I'm reading this fantastic book right now that talks about the rise of Nazism in the Balkans. And like a lot of the anxiety against the intellectuals, which were the Jewish community in Serbia and Bosnia and Croatia, and the reason why Hitler was so popular at that time is because the priests had so much power over the congregants in their population, and specifically, Catholic and Eastern Orthodox. They had so much power over their flock. But when the Jews arrived and said, well, Jesus wasn't actually the Son of God, and your priests are taking advantage of you, and they are putting you in a position that is subservient to them, and perhaps you ought to rise against the priestly class, and perhaps you ought not be taxed by them, and perhaps there should be a separation of church and state. You could understand why anti-Semitism would become so prevalent, and why the priestly class would be the first ones to say, we got to get rid of these Jews. We got to get rid of these people because they deny our gods, and they want to upset our social order, which is one of a non-separation of church and state. I mean, for God's sakes, like, listen, the French Revolution was a terrible part of American history, of European history, a terrible part of world history, bloody anarchy and revolution and violence and l'enfant terrible. But they had to separate church and state. And if you cannot separate church and state through peaceful means, and the American Revolution was, mostly peaceful, if you will, then it has to be done through violence, because I should not be taxed to pay for somebody else's religion. If I was being taxed to pay for imams, I would be, and for God's sakes, we are with our foreign policy and the money we send to Iran, for God's sakes, which is total bullshit, right? Then it's worth fighting. Like, it's worth fighting. Freedom, separation of church and state is worth killing for. It's worth dying for. And many people who were well-intentioned during the French Revolution, eventually, of course, later were guillotined. And Thomas Paine, whose coffee we have sitting in front of us, was almost killed in the French Revolution. It was only through a clerical error, a mistake, that they didn't behead him while he was there. But it was worth dying for, to fight for a separation of church and state. Let them be forever separate. Build up a wall, as Thomas Jefferson said. Let them be forever separate.
Well, I would also argue that
so
the
that
separation of church and state actually has made religion flourish in the United States of America.
Agreed.
It's actually been a net positive for religion in the country to have separation of church and state. Because it enables people to freely choose as they wish to worship in any way they want to, without any compulsion by the government to be one particular faith or one particular sect. So it's a net positive. So I've never understood people who are libertarian who want the government and somehow involved in any affairs of religion whatsoever.
Well,
I'd be fine if the Capitol just had blank white walls and did not have decorations up for the holidays. Like, I'd be fine with that.
Can I read to you Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists? This is very short. Gentlemen, the affectionate sentiments of esteem and approbation which you are so good as to express on me, on behalf of the Danbury Baptist Association, gives me the highest satisfaction. My duties dictate a faithful and zealous pursuit of the interests of my constituents, and in proportion as they are persuaded of my fidelity to these duties, the discharge of them becomes more and more pleasing. Here's the key passage. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between his man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith and his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence the act of whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to the expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of conscience, I shall with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments, see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments, which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. That's where people, and this was in 1802, that's where people get this idea. That's where the idea of the separation of church and state originated.
And a lot of people say,
Or at
what's
least
on
to
our
some
founding
extent.
documents? It's like, but
Yes.
make no, what's the First Amendment? Make no establishment or what is that? Isn't that, I don't remember it off, I don't have it memorized like a Bible.
Congress shall make no
God.
law respecting an establishment of religion.
God is like everywhere in the government.
Yeah. But that was in the 1950s.
50s
See,
though,
that was
that's in the
recent.
50s. Yeah.
It wasn't, it was all recent.
Oh,
It
so
wasn't,
like the founding fathers didn't have God in anything?
No.
They
Oh.
didn't. As a matter of fact, the reason why that we have "In God We Trust" in our government buildings and on our money is this started with Dwight Eisenhower. It was because they wanted to use religion. They weaponized religion in order to fight against atheist communism.
Right.
And
even
here's
our
the thing,
Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, was added in the 50s. That was not in the Pledge of Allegiance.
But they don't teach you these kinds of histories in school. You have to learn this through your education on your own, right?
To me, that's not separation of church and state.
I like the joke somebody made yesterday. It was like, where else should the statue of Satan be but in the government where he belongs?
I mean, he's amongst his own. I mean, exactly. He's amongst his own. Yeah.
They don't like competition.
He's hanging out with his friends. Yeah. It's sad that we have to have these conversations.
But also here's the thing: they're trying to trigger you. Like when they put up a statue of Baphomet or whatever, they're trying to make it debate. And so when you take the bait, you look like a dumbass. So it's like it's like we're trying to trigger me, trying to get me, trying to go me. And am I going to let? And so then the question then comes: who's running the show? Obviously, when you react that way, you're letting them control you. You're letting them be the boss of your emotional state. So really, who's the winner at the end of the day? The people putting up the Satan statue because they succeeded in exactly what they wanted to do, was to trigger you.
That's right.
So they win.
Here's what George Washington wrote to the Hebrew congregation in Newport, Rhode Island in August of 1790. He says, while I receive with much satisfaction your address, replete with expressions of affection and esteem, I rejoice in the opportunity of assuring you I shall always retain a grateful remembrance of the cordial welcome I experienced in my visit to Newport. The reflection on the days of citizens of difficulty and danger which are past is rendered the more sweet, meaning the revolution is over, from a consciousness that they are succeeded by days of uncommon prosperity and security. If we have wisdom to make the best use of advantages to which we are now favored, we cannot fail under the just administration of a good government to become a great and happy people. Here's the key passage that Washington said to the Jewish congregation. He said, the citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of, as it was by the indulgence of one class of people, that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens in giving it on all occasions their effectual support. He says that he is pleased with your favorable opinion of his administration and fervent wishes for his felicity. May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while every one shall sit in safety under his own wine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the Father of all mercies scatter light and not darkness to our paths and make us all in our several vocations useful here, and in his own due time and way everlastingly happy. Beautiful. George Washington to the Jewish congregation in 1790.
Thanks, George.
What do you think he was trying to say there, Justin?
I mean, first of all, how's my mic? Is my mic okay?
I just fixed it.
Oh, you
Yeah, I
did?
just fixed
Okay,
it.
because I wasn't sure what was happening on that one.
No, I fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, again, people have religious beliefs. I mean, this is the thing. It's like people. I mean, this is the thing. It's a private thing, and this is the privacy of conscience, right? And I think that's where they wanted it to stay. Obviously, was it? And I feel the same way. It's like, I think your religious beliefs are for you and you alone, and those, and how you wish to worship and how you wish to, that's between you and God, and however you define God. It's just when, you want to be like telling me what to do and taking my money to fund your church that I'm just like, I'm pretty sure.
Well, imagine living in the United Kingdom. They literally have to pay their tax dollars to the Church of England. They actually have priests who work for the government. Can you imagine the outrage if someone even suggested something like that here in the United States?
Right.
Yeah, well, the other thing too. Oh, I know that
Steph.
a lot of teachers teach religious holidays in schools. And so I'm wondering, where do you draw the line with that?
Well, good question.
Like teaching about like Hanukkah traditions, for example. Is it okay for kids to be taught the dreidel game by a teacher? I know this has happened. It's like, is it okay for a teacher to bring like Christmas decorations into the classroom and teach them about Christmas tradition or Diwali or Kwanzaa? I know I went to a private school as a kid, so I learned about religious beliefs, but that was private. So I don't know if in public school, if you're allowed to like teach about holidays. I'm
here in
that's
Missouri,
again is where I'm just not sure if I understand the
wanted
church
to have an
and state
elective Bible class, but it didn't pass. But I mean, I can imagine the outrage if he had actually advanced an idea that we should have a Quran class. But maybe we should, because we learn a lot about the Bible. We didn't learn much about the Quran, and God help us if we aren't having a lot of problems with the Muslim world at this time in history. So, Thomas Jefferson, one of the first things that he did was start to learn about the Quran, but that was because he was planning to kill some Muslims.
Pirates, Barbary pirates.
Oh, yes. Did you think that the Muslims were going to get away without getting offended? My problem with the Satanists, Justin, is that they're all a bunch of asshole communists, right? I'd much rather truck with the Christians because, to be honest, Justin, Christianity was largely liberalized because of the Enlightenment, right? It was blunted by the Enlightenment. Our problem with the Muslim world is that it did not have contact with the Enlightenment. The Christians, the Jews, when people say, "Oh, well, the Bible says all these horrible things" in response to criticizing the Quran, they don't practice that. They don't practice that here in the United States. We don't stone a rebellious.
Tell you how
we
to
don't
beat your
stone a rebellious
slaves.
son.
I mean, they tell you how to beat your slaves. You know what I mean? It's like,
right, but they
just don't make them lose their
anymore.
teeth or something like that.
But the thing is, they don't do that anymore. The Christianity, as it's written verbatim in the Bible, is illegal in the United States.
Correct.
Right, but
not only that,
countries,
live up to your ideals. Jesus said to leave all of your money and follow Him. Why aren't we seeing more? Why don't more Christians accept a vow of poverty and say, "I'm giving up and I'm leaving my family," because that's also what Jesus said to do, was leave your family.
Well, they've got a new thing. It's called the prosperity gospel. So
that's what I'm saying. Like that's again, like you don't have to be even literate in the Bible to be like, there's something fishy about that. There's something fishy about that.
I teach Stephanie karate because there's that one section in the Bible where if she were to grab the testicles of a man that I'm fighting with, then her hand would have to be cut off. So I teach her how to do karate kicks so she doesn't have to have her hand cut off.
Not only that, but like
grabbing a guy's balls.
If your kids talk back to you, you're okay to kill them.
Exactly. But see, the thing is, and that's the thing, that's the difference between Christianity and Judaism and Islam. In Islamic countries, they practice the darker aspects of their religion. In the United States, you can't cut your son's hand off, or you can't cut his tongue out if he talks back to you. You can't do that here because we have a secular constitution and a rule of law that overrules any of the laws in the Bible that don't make any sense.
Isn't it all about the interpretation, though, of the Bible, the things in the Bible? Because I know a lot of people are like, well, it didn't actually mean you have to, take out someone's tongue. It's just metaphorical.
Or that's the Old Testament and you don't have to follow it.
You know who I really respect?
No, we don't actually want to kill people.
You know who I really respect is the Amish, because they have the courage of their convictions to go and live away from society and to really live in their religion. I have much respect for the Amish. Because they are truly brave and they are truly willing to put their money where their mouth is and to live their faith and their life in that way and to separate themselves from society. Like I'm like, y'all are doing y'all are on the right track. Like I have a lot of respect for people who will be like, you know what, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm actually going to go and live away from society and like live in a commune, build my own furniture, have a farm. You know, I'm like, there you go. There you go.
Well, and to a large extent, the Jews do that as well. Like that's, they tend to live in, especially the Orthodox, they will live in those communities and they will live according to their laws and follow that law to the letter.
They have to pay taxes.
They do have to pay taxes.
I am so envious of the Amish. I wish they would let me in.
That was the one thing that I really like Jesus and think that he made a lot of good points. And I think he's definitely a character that's worthy of admiration. But if I were to make one criticism of Jesus, I wish that he had never said render under Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's, because it's justified all of the Christian communists and Christian socialists for saying Jesus was a socialist and you have to like take your money and give it to the poor and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just kind of like, all right, well, I just, if he just made that a little bit clear, and he did throw the money changers out of the temple, which is pretty good. We libertarians, we like to say, oh, well, that's the Federal Reserve,
And if he just had said something about gay people, we could all put this argument to rest, I
know, but Jesus didn't say anything about gay people,
he
did
didn't say nothing about gay people. I'm like, couldn't you just have said like, I'm not down with it? Or could you
thou shalt not lie with another man as you do a woman? That's Old Testament, right?
That's Old Testament, yeah.
But I thought we weren't supposed to follow the Old Testament.
Well, but this is the thing. Jesus was a Jew and he was trained in the temple, right? And he said he didn't come. He said he came to fulfill the law. He didn't come to abolish it. Wasn't that the whole thing that he said?
Brandon Meyer says, no, Jesus wasn't a socialist. He actually fed people.
That's
right. Yeah.
All right. So, Justin, we've offended everybody here. I think we should probably end on a high note like that. Justin, is there anybody we haven't offended yet?
You have the luxury of like being able to be like, this is my job. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my job. So it's like someone will find this and be like,
anti-offensive.
That's like, that's who I know him. I'm never going to ever, he's horrible.
But I'm like, I know. Here's the thing, Justin, in this business, the only crime that you can commit, and actually I learned this from Neil Cavuto of Fox News, the one crime that you can commit in this business is to be boring. And you know what? We're not boring.
And that's why I like that Christmas video from the White House. It's not boring.
Stephanie is just saying she needs to stop saying nice things about the Biden and White House. Did you see the tap dancing video they did, Justin?
I did.
What do you think?
If you really want a fun, 5 minutes of your life taken, check out their website. Because everything you read on there, you're going to be like, oh my God! Like it's all of the buzzwords, all of the common buzzwords that you would
diversity, equity, and inclusion,
or just broadening the conversation, whatever it is. It's you're just like, oh, I see the squirrel in the tree.
Justin Peterson, my brother, ladies and gents, let's give him a round of applause. What do you say?
Yay!
We love you, brother. We'll see you next week here for Christmas.
See you next week.
Oh, a lonely Jew. A Jew on Christmas, a gay on Christmas, a secularist on Christmas. We're all going to celebrate Christmas together.
I'm just a Jew.
A lonely Jew on Christmas. All right. Now everybody's been offended. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you too.
See you next week. What do you think, Stephanie? Did we have a good show?
I think so. I wanted to talk about the toxic masculinity as well. The clip from Hannah Cox.
We had so many other great stories, but we just don't have the time to get through all of them. I tell you what, if somebody drops $100 bill right now,
oh my God,
within the next minute, because this theme song has 2 minutes left to play.
Shoot.
If somebody drops $100 bill right now, we will continue the show for another extra 30 minutes. What do you think? Can we do it?
$100.
What
if it's like a bunch of people dropping like $50.
They've got a minute 53 to make it happen.
God.
So we will continue this show if somebody drops a $100 bill. Otherwise, we do have to go because we are busy people. We appreciate all of our listeners for tuning into the Wake Up America show this morning. For all of you who have enjoyed it, do me a favor, click like and subscribe. If you were offended, but you're still here, actually, you're our type of people, because lots of things that we say here on the show are going to make people mad, right? So, you know what? You're in the right place. Honestly, like Old Saucy, for example, who is the first time we've seen him here.
Hi.
I'm pretty sure we offended him, but he's still here. Hang out with us some more, Old Saucy. Like, there's lots more offensiveness to go, right? So do us a favor, click that like button and subscribe to the channel. Steffi, show them the coffee real quick. We got 1 minute.
I really wanted to plug our shop, apforlibertyshop.com. We sell this beautiful coffee right here based on the founding fathers. And also, we have coffee subscriptions and coffee bundles, so you can get a nice discount. You can make it super easy for yourself. Just get all your coffee to your door without even doing anything. And so we also have cell phone cases. We've got beer steins. That's actually Scott Fawn's personal beer stein right over there. I mean, we have everything you can possibly imagine that is Liberty themed in our shop. Home goods, keychains, metal signs. We've sold some metal signs. We're very excited about that.
First custom metal sign. God bless America.
We did. And so we're very excited. We're actually going to be adding some gnomes to our shop.
Oh yeah, this weekend we got the Christmas
shooting
gnomes.
So get excited about that. I mean, we're continuing to add bigger and better things. I'm always like, what next? What next? What else can we possibly bring in here? I was even saying we need to sell some of those cookies that Doug Hill has been sending out to like everybody for Christmas that have our coffee beans in them. He made like coffee cookies using Washington's Revolutionary Roast. So I wish we could sell some baked goods even. That'd be awesome.
Yep, for sure. Check out ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, ap4libertyshop.com. You can get custom metal signs. You can also get signs like God Bless America that's already made. That's the one that we sold the other day. We'd love to put those in your home. You can hang those outdoors or indoors, either way. So it's great.
Because it has a special coating on it.
Yep,
so that it can withstand the elements.
We appreciate all of our listeners for tuning in today. We will see you on Monday. Remember,
be free.
And we'll see you on Monday on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
At all the bar mitzvahs. That's what the kids would do.
Force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have "Glad you came out" and "I'm so happy that you're queer" in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse, was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.